Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to Viva-Mundo-VMI webinars. Today we are joined by Foothill and De Anza College. They will be discussing the benefits of studying with them today and the outcome of studying our college in the USA. Now, a little bit about Viva-Mundo and what we do. So, vivamundo.com exists to help students with the information and details required for studying abroad, destinations, degrees, application details, that sort of thing, to help you onto the next chapter of your study life. A little bit about today, we are using Zoom, as I am sure all of you are very familiar with by this point of time. And we will be asking any questions throughout. If you have any, please do ask us. We have a question and answer box at the bottom of your page. Send all of your questions there, and towards the end of the webinar, we will be getting right to those and into the nitty gritty. Now, I'm going to pass over to you, Greg, and you can start the webinar.
Thank you very much for joining us today. The purpose of this is to help you decide how to choose the best university for you, and that's the best university in the United States. We are particularly focused on undergraduate institutions. This is not about where to find a master's program or an MBA program, but for those of you thinking to do your first degree in the United States. Now, the official title of this webinar is Choosing and Getting into the Best U.S. University for You. And at the top of the first slide, I just chose to highlight the most important part of that message, choosing the best university for you. People always want to know what's the best university. The rankings are available everywhere. Everybody knows more or less what they are in terms of the rankings. Those rankings mean nothing because your needs and gifts are unique. You are a special person, as your mom and dad have been telling you for many years. You know very well how special you are. But in fact, what your needs are coming from your background and your schooling and what your gifts are truly unique to you and in order for you to reach your maximum capabilities, there are some important questions to ask and to answer. We look at this in a way as doing an inventory of yourself, a personality inventory of asking yourself, perhaps along with your parents, what am I really interested in? In what kind of environment do I best thrive? And where would I be where I could reach my fullest potential? And what kind of institution in the United States would help me do that? So these are some important things we want to look at. Yes, I represent a particular college in the United States. And yes, we think very highly of ourselves and our institution, and we will tell you about that and how we might fit into your plans. But let me be clear, any good university admissions counselor wants the best for you, the individual student. And what that means is, again, to help you decide what school is the best for you. Now, at a certain point, we want to talk about our schools, but in the beginning, we'd like to present some general information to help you narrow down the type of institution you should be looking at that would be the best fit for you and your talents and your gifts. United States education is different from education in other countries. As you know, most bachelor's degrees are 4 years in the United States. In some countries, such as Australia and others, they are only 3 years. There are some important differences and benefits to this. Of course, it's nice to say, well, I'll be done in 3 years, and then I can continue on, and it's much quicker. Some people think, well, I will do my bachelor's degree in a country where it's for 3 years, and then I could come to the United States or Canada and do a master's degree program. That's actually a little bit difficult to do because master's programs in the United States, although we're not talking about those, but master's degrees require basically a 4-year undergraduate degree program. Not all of them, but many of them do. So that's not the best pathway that you might have if you're thinking that way. So we are 4 years. There are some majors, such as engineering and architecture, which are actually 5 years. And so these are things to keep in mind. Again, looking at the parameters of your gifts and what your capabilities are. how to choose the right school. So it's good to know that a few programs are longer than 4 years. What does the 4-year American undergraduate institution offer you? Well, a 4-year education compared to a 3-year gives you more time to choose what do I want to study. So many students, especially international students, coming in knowing what they want to study. The most popular majors all over the United States, both for international and for domestic students, are business and computer science. Two, two fields which are very standard and are offered at all institutions across the United States. So many students coming in thinking they would want one of those. We're always delighted when we meet students who are interested in the humanities or the arts or something other than that. But we have very strong programs in business and in computer science. But what we offer in the United States at every institution is the chance to change your mind. So in the first year, you can take a wide variety of courses. Many people who come in being absolutely certain that they know what they want to do, in fact, change their mind. Here's an interesting fact. In the United States, American undergraduates change their majors an average of 4 times over the 4-year course. So we are not at all bothered by the fact that you might come in either not knowing what you want to study or that you might want to change your major. If you come in and you are majoring in, say, computer science, and at the end of the first year, you say, well, that's okay, but I think I'm really interested in music, it is possible to change at that point. If you go for longer than a year and you want to make a big change, for example, from music into physics or from business into computer science, after 1 year, you might have a little bit of a challenge. But you have other options in the United States in a 4-year program. Those options include doing a double major. You could do business and engineering, or let's say you really love music and but you and your parents decide, well, that may not be a career path where I could make a viable living, but I'm really interested in business also. So you could do a major in business, that is, take most of your courses in business and do a minor in music. So you could pursue something that you love on a personal level while still pursuing something that you're also interested in professionally. We have double majors in which you can do an equal amount of courses in both fields of study, and we have the major and minor option. So these are some of the nice things that a 4-year education in the United States allow you to do. So that's very good to know when you're comparing where to go, not only in terms of schools, but in terms of countries. What about funding? Let's be honest, let's be direct here. Your needs and gifts are unique. Schools are there to help you reach your potential, but in the United States, they cost money. They are not free. Uh, Unfortunately, funding needs to be a very large part of your consideration of studying in the United States. How realistic is it for you to consider that you're going to get a scholarship? Well, some schools offer scholarships. Most schools offer what we would call nominal scholarships. They will give you $500, $1,000, $5,000, $10,000. That may sound like a lot of money, but when the tuition only, not food, room, and board, when the tuition at the average American school is about $30,000 a year, getting $10,000 still leaves you with a bill for $20,000 for tuition, plus another probably 15 for expenses. So out of the total of, let's say, $45,000, you will still have to come up with 25 to 30, $35,000. In other words, scholarships sound like a good thing. They are a good thing, but to get one that is absolutely will cover everything is very unlikely. A lot of students think that there is the possibility of getting both their room and board and incidental costs as well as their tuition covered. That is the most unlikely that you would get what we would call a full scholarship. So realistically speaking, you need to be aware of where your funding is coming from, of how much the education is going to cost you. So this is a very important question in terms of what is the right school for me, because the right school for me often means what can I afford? And I'm talking about American students as well as international students. So these are very important factors for you to come and consider with your parents. We will talk more about funding as we go along here in the presentation. And this first slide will move along at some point. I know it's rather boring just to look at this and to look at me and talking about this. But anyway, these are things which are very key and important for you in terms of choosing what is the best university for you. Once you get into an American university, what are the personal traits that will enable you to succeed? What's very important, I think, is that you be proactive. Uh, there are some cultures in which students are more comfortable speaking up in class, asking questions, and being interactive and proactive. Uh, in American university classrooms, people are not expected only to be reactive or to sit there silently. In fact, you will develop a very good relationship with your professor and meet other students more easily if you participate fully in class. So this is one thing that will help you in terms of succeeding academically. It will also help you in succeeding personally within the United States educational system. All of our colleges and universities have many, many clubs and activities, not just sports, but music and theater and chess and small business club and the large business club and engineering club and computer science club and all kinds of very interesting things, environmental sciences, women's studies. These things are available for you and they will play an important part in your development, both socially and intellectually. So your personality traits that will help you in many ways, and we'll talk about this in terms of getting into the best universities in a little while. These personality traits are very helpful. Just keep in mind, the more proactive you are. If you're going to sit in your room and study, in our case, for 2 years, because we're the first 2 years of university, and you come away with a 4.0, you may well not get into an elite or top-notch institution. Because for those schools, almost everybody is going to have a 4.0 GPA or a 3.8 or 3.9 or even 3.7. We get questions from parents about students that they know who've had a 4.0 on one of our campuses and they didn't get into UC Berkeley. And I have to say to them, but we have students with a 3.7, a 3.8, 3.9 who do get into UC Berkeley or Stanford or Harvard, or you'll see some of the other many universities that we transfer students into. So we try to make it clear, and again, we'll talk about that later, of what universities are looking for in terms of your admission and in terms of your ultimate success with them and in your life and in your profession. So we'll talk a little bit more about what is expected of you by top colleges and universities. Okay, so now here comes a little bit about who we are and what we can do in terms of defining what may be a good pathway for you and how we think we offer some unique possibilities for you to achieve your goals. So we are in fact two schools. One is Foothill College and the other is De Anza College. Now, some of you may know, because the word has gone around a lot these days, that colleges and universities are essentially the same thing in the United States. In the US, we have 2-year colleges and 4-year colleges. Did you know that Harvard is a 4-year college? When you get your AB from Harvard, or as they call it there, I mean, it is called an AB there and not a BA, the diploma that you get says Harvard College. It's after the old British system where the universities had colleges within the university. So Harvard is a university. Any school is a university when it has graduate programs on the master's and the doctorate level. So at Harvard, you have Harvard Divinity School, Harvard Law School, Harvard Medical School, part of the university. My point is only this. We are a 2-year university program. We are called college. Our name does not include community college, but in general, we are known as a community college. In the United States now, there are over 1,000 community colleges. In the state of California alone, there are over 110 community colleges. We like to think we're number one. Probably a lot of other schools do too, but we'll go over why we think we are number one. But colleges offer the first 2 years of university, and again, there are some which are full 4-year university courses. But in the first 2 years with us, you train to transfer into the third year. So the crucial point is this does not add any time and is at much less expense than if you would go into most 4-year schools. So 2 years with us and then into the third year. This is called 2+2 program. Now, this is interesting that almost 50% of all Americans, and today it may well be 50% or even a little over, start out in community colleges. They do so for two very simple reasons. They do so for the same reasons that international students come to us in large numbers. Number one is the cost. Community colleges offer the lowest cost for tuition, and schools such as ours, which are part of the California state system, offer the lowest cost because we're part of the public school system as opposed to private schools, which charge more. Most community colleges in the United States are, in fact, public institutions. So Americans and international students have discovered that we are the most cost-effective way to start an education. Just as important, and sometimes more important for our students, is that they are able to get into a higher level of institution after 2 years with us than most of them could get into applying directly from high school. This is particularly important for international students. We have very flexible admission, no SAT. If you were applying to some of the most competitive schools in the United States, you would have to present an SAT. With us, after you spend 2 years with us, even then, and you're applying to top competitive schools, most of them will not require an SAT from you. So we have very flexible admission, which is very important. But just as important is that you have 2 years with us in a way to build your resume as if you were going to apply for a top level job. But in this case, you're going to apply for a top university. And you are going to have 2 years to develop the skills, the interests, the leadership, and the service components that these schools are looking for beyond just the GPA. So the GPA is important. You will not have to present any further tests when you make the application for the next university, but you will be able to take a look and see how all of your activities, your service, your leadership, which are qualities that they look for and they try to quantify, you can do in 2 years with us. So we give you that opportunity. So these are the two primary reasons both Americans and international students come to us. As I said, we like to think that we're amongst the top community colleges in the United States. I personally base that on one of the major factors, which is on this list. You will see all of them, number one in this, number one in that, et cetera, et cetera. Rankings are nice, but what do they mean ultimately? I think that the most important rankings are the success rankings. And for us, in the middle of your screen, number one for acceptances and transfers to the University of California. Now, the University of California system includes schools such as Berkeley, UCLA, Davis, San Diego, Santa Barbara. In other words, the creme de la creme of the public school system in California are the UCs. And we have accepted and actually transfer more students to these schools than any other. We are two schools, so we have an advantage in that way. But our two schools transfer more to the top universities in California than any other of the 110 community colleges. So for me, that's very important. And I'll show you on another slide. As far as I know, we're the only school that actually publishes the number of the students that we transfer. Another factor here that I think is important and will be to your parents is if you look in the bottom lower left of this slide, we're number one safest community college district in California. In our district, we have two schools. One is Foothill, the other is De Anza. The other 110 schools in California are in other districts. Of all of the 110 schools, our district is ranked the safest. We are, after all, located in the heart of Silicon Valley. This is what we call in colloquial English, the high rent district. It is not cheap to live here. This is a place that is beautiful, it's safe, and offers a lot of benefits for being exactly where we are, also being only 45 minutes to an hour from San Francisco. We'll talk a little bit more about location in another slide. One last factor, and you can go back and look at this, and you can go on our website and you look at other things in terms of our ratings and rankings and things. But another thing that I think is important on this slide is that our average class size is 27. You may or may not know that at the large research institutions, such as UC Berkeley and MIT and Harvard, sometimes the freshman classes are 400 students, and they are taught by graduate assistants. So there is a main professor who lectures, and then after that, you break down into groups that are led by graduate assistants. In community colleges, this is not the case. Your students, your professors are always full-time professors who are there to teach. They love to teach. They're dedicated to teaching. You are not going to have a graduate assistant who's 4 or 5 years older than you are, taking care of your seminars and grading your papers. And the average class size on our campuses is 27. So this is, I think, another important factor for you to consider. Now, we're talking about how to choose the best school for you. Let's get back to that for a little bit, talking about the size of the classes. Some of you are from very large urban cities, and you are used to the fast pace of the large city. You are comfortable with things moving quickly, taking the subway, going out to clubs and things like that. Others of you may come from quieter communities. You may come from suburban communities, or you may come from rural communities even. So one of the questions you, together perhaps with your parents, have to ask and answer is, in what kind of environment will I thrive? Where will I do best? How much stimulation do I need or want? Or should I go to a place which is a little bit more quiet and where I can get more support and maybe have more time to concentrate on my studies? A lot of this is up to you. Our two campuses are different, one from the other. De Anza is closer to Cupertino. Cupertino is well known as it's one of the key cities in Silicon Valley next to San Jose. It's the headquarters for Apple. By the way, the co-founders of Apple, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, both went to De Anza. That school is closer, that campus is closer to restaurants and malls and things like that. Our Foothill campus is a little bit more outside of the city, and you would probably spend more time there studying, meeting and making friends outside of your own nationality group, and you might get a little more attention there because the size of it is smaller, and you might spend more time in the library, you might join more clubs, all of which are important in terms of building that resume that I spoke to you about. But you need to make this assessment on your own. What would the environment be like? But keep in mind, our average class size is 27, and we'll talk a little bit more about the facilities of the campus later on as we move on. As I mentioned, as far as I know, we're the only school that actually publishes the figures for our transfer rates. Now, 80% of our students, I'm going to level with you here, stay in California when they transfer into the third year. Why? It's beautiful, they make friends, they know the area. In our area alone, and we'll see this on the map slide, we are 1 hour and 15 minutes from Berkeley, 45 minutes to an hour from University of San Francisco, San Francisco State. We are 15 minutes from Stanford. In other words, when you're with us, you have a chance to visit many great universities and decide which one might be right for you. So 80% of our students do stay within the state of California. But as you can see from this list, our students are accepted all over the United States and into Canada. But last year that we had the figures for, 304 students into UC Berkeley. This is only in 1 year. So you can see almost 1,000 in UC Davis. Keep in mind, a school like UC Davis surpasses Berkeley in some fields, such as food technology, food science, nutrition, areas of health and agriculture. So not all schools are right for every person. We tend to think of the big name schools, but some of the big name schools don't have, for example, graphic design or some of the other fields that you might be interested in. So what the best school is for you may be a school that might come up and might surprise you. UC Irvine, I don't know if you've heard of UC Irvine or not. It's one of the UCs. It's ranked in the top 50 of all American universities. UCLA, you've probably heard of that. 290. UC San Diego, highly desirable school, 786 kids. And then underneath that, you can see only a few of the other schools that we've transferred into. Uh, Also, there are schools like the Big Ten, we call it University of Michigan, University of Illinois, University of Wisconsin. The Ivy Leagues are there, University of British Columbia, that's UBC, University of Toronto. A lot of the engineering schools, Georgia Tech, Carnegie Mellon, MIT, many, many others. All of this is available. The list is available for you to take a look at. Now, we spoke earlier that this program is called 2+2. 2 years with us, and then you transfer. Here is what is key, and here is one thing we can offer you that most other schools cannot offer you. The community colleges in California have what are known as the TAG program, Transfer Agreement Guarantee, to certain schools which are listed on this slide, such as UC Irvine, ranked in the top 50, UC Davis, UC Santa Barbara, UC Santa Cruz, and others. We offer guaranteed admission based on the GPA that you have with us, usually about a 3.2 or 3.3. With UCLA, we have what's called preferred admission. It's not guaranteed, but about 85% of our students with a 3.6 or higher make it into UCLA. And you see, we have more kids going to UC Berkeley, which is actually, I believe, higher ranked than UCLA, because it's in the north and it's only an hour and 15 minutes away from us, but it's much more competitive. To UC Berkeley, no school has either guaranteed admission or preferred admission. There are some community colleges that pretend that they do, but they don't. We have what's called the Pathway to a Four-Year University. That is a unique program in which only 8 or 9 schools participate, only with UC Berkeley. But UC Berkeley does not call it the Pathway to Berkeley because they do not want to imply that there's either preferred or guaranteed admission to Berkeley. So with that program, you would get, if Berkeley is your dream school, when you come in with us, you can tell us that that's your dream school. You will be assigned an actual admissions counselor from UC Berkeley, who you can meet with 2 or 3 times a year on our campus. And in the summer, if you'd like, you can take courses on the UC Berkeley campus. After a while, you and the Berkeley counselor will both know if you are actually Berkeley material. If not, you can go and choose one of the transfer admission guarantee schools. So this is what's great about this program. You can always apply for your dream school, but as a fallback, you can still get in on a guaranteed basis, if your grades are good enough, to one of the top 50 or top 100 schools in the United States, which are on our guaranteed admission program. Now, there are many community colleges in the United States. Washington State, Texas, Massachusetts, they're all over 1,000. What's unique about the California community colleges is that we have a direct relationship with the UCs and with the Cal States. The Cal States are the second level of universities. San Jose State, San Francisco State, San Diego State University. These schools have some programs which are better than some of the UCs. So in terms of the ranking of the program, some of them are just as good, if not better. They're less expensive and a little easier to get into. So we transfer kids also into those programs as well, to both levels. But when you're looking at all of these are important things to keep in mind. So the transfer agreements that we have are very important in terms of you going ahead and finding a school that really fits. When kids leave us, they are usually applying to 4 or 5 schools, and we have a transfer center. So you don't have to do this on your own. And usually you will choose one dream school and 1 or 2 schools that are close to your dream school, and 1 or 2 schools where we call safety schools. We are pretty sure you will be accepted. But we are there to help, to advise, and to help you make all the right decisions to get into the school that you are best qualified for, and hopefully that you have determined is the best fit for you. Now, we said cost is one of the main reasons that students choose. 50% of all Americans now begin. This is an eye-opener. take a look at our tuition. This is for 1 year. Now, this figure has just changed. So in fact, it is now $8,496. So it went up slightly. And most likely, the other tuition here have also gone up in this past year. But what I want to tell you is that if you compare our cost for 1 year of the tuition only compared to that of the Cal State, San Jose State, San Francisco State, you see there's a factor of about 3. We are about 1/3 the cost. If you were able to be accepted to UC Berkeley, UCLA, and to get in and to go to those schools, to any of the UCs directly, you would be paying in tuition alone 6 times in 1 year what you would be paying for us. Here's the thing. Give your parents a break, come to us first. Okay. So if you got into Stanford, if you got into Harvard, those schools, they're going for between 55 and 60 for tuition now. Yes, they offer scholarships and they have scholarships, but again, how much will you get from them? It's always the question of how significant a scholarship will you receive. So consider this. You have 2 years with us at between $8,496 and $10,000 for the year. Or you have these other options at the other schools. So this is very important. It's a very important reason why US and international students start out in community colleges. At our schools, we have over 100 majors. Most of the majors are available on both campuses. There are a few which are available only on one campus or the other. For example, film, video production, animation, very strong and available only on De Anza. Some courses, engineering is definitely stronger at Foothill. Nanoscience and nanotechnology, that would be more at Foothill. Environmental science and field studies, very strong at De Anza. But the basic courses, business, psychology, computer science, are great at both schools and they're offered at both schools. So next you see what the affordable tuition is. I'm going to give you an inside scoop here. If you were talking to any one of the other 110 community colleges, the price they would have up there would be very close to $8,496 for the year. The reason for that is the state sets the cost for the tuition. It's basically the same. There are very slight variations, basically the same at all of the California community colleges. But we all give you what is the minimum cost if you come for 12 credits for 3 times a year. We're on the quarter system. Most community colleges are on the semester system. There's a benefit to being on the quarter system because all of the UCs, except for Berkeley, are on the quarter system. So in terms of your being able to transfer. Anyway, you will actually want to take 15 credits to graduate on time, and that cost will be closer to $10,000. But most of us, we only quote for 12,000, and people are very afraid to move a little bit beyond that because then they would look more expensive. But to give you the full, honest truth of what you're going to need to think about in terms of your expenses, you're going to be spending about $10,000 a year on the tuition. We already spoke about flexible admission requirements. We'll talk more about English later on, the guaranteed, the safe and welcoming classes, and the small class sizes. So here are some of the majors. We won't spend a lot of time here. There's very little that we don't have. You can come back and take a look at this later on. We're very well equipped again on both campuses. So where are we located? I think we have a tremendous advantage in terms of our location. Not just that we're in California, not just that we're in Silicon Valley, where it's very safe and it's very beautiful. We have no snow. I think the mean temperature during the year is 22 or 23 degrees. It's a beautiful place to be. But what we have also is that we are close to major universities that you can visit both as a tourist and as a potential interested student. As I say, Stanford, UC Davis, UC Berkeley, UC Santa Cruz, UC San Francisco State, University of San Francisco, many great schools, San Jose State, tremendous school, 15 minutes away from us, top in computer science and in engineering. So you can visit all of these schools when you're with us. It's a great touristic area. Now, We are located just minutes from all of the headquarters of many of the top um, high-tech programs in the country, in the world. So you can take a look at that too. We have some very interesting internships and OPT, optional practical training opportunities. You can see a few of them listed there. So there is a real benefit besides being in a lovely, beautiful, safe community, 45 minutes to an hour from San Francisco, only 30 to 45 minutes away from the major international airport. Those are all wonderful things, but we have other more intangible things to offer you in terms of access to iconic universities and iconic high-tech firms. So live and study in Silicon Valley. I won't spend much time on this. It's a little bit of a travel log, but these are the actual photos. The redwoods are not far from us. You see Golden Gate Bridge. You see the beautiful ocean coast of the Pacific Ocean, which is not far from us. So anyway, it's a special place to be. Here are some distances where we are. Some of you have friends or relatives in San Jose. Anyway, here's Napa Valley is the wine country. We're actually not far from Las Vegas. You can get there. Los Angeles, you can drive to in 5 hours or 1 hour flight. Sometimes people get us confused. They think we're in the Los Angeles area. We're not. We're in the more civilized north of California. Oops, sorry. So we have, as I mentioned, some very outstanding alumni, one of whom is Steve Wozniak, who graduated from De Anza, and he went to UC Berkeley, and Steve Jobs, who was one of those fabulous dropouts who made millions of dollars, but he went to De Anza. The chancellor of all of UCLA attended Foothill, and then you can see some of the places where our students have gone on to work, both as interns and full-time careers. Foothill is the smaller of the two campuses. Smaller, it's still about 115 acres. We have about 15,000 students. The pictures here show you what it looks like. It is not crowded because the campuses are so large and the students come in over the course of a day for their classes. Outstanding labs, libraries, the science labs, the computer labs, tennis courts, swimming pool, Olympic size, music technology laboratory. This applies to both campuses, so you will be happy on either campus. Foothill has actually won the award for most beautiful community college for 2 years. It's really gorgeous. De Anza has done more in what we call Spanish mission style. Again, tremendous facilities. It has a larger student population. It's closer to some of the malls and the restaurant areas. And it's probably better known because it's close to Cupertino. Okay, admission requirements are fairly simple. If you take a look on the left, you see all we need. Proof of English proficiency. If you're not in an international school or having studied English for 3 years or longer in an English school, English speaking school, you would have to submit the TOEFL or the IELTS. TOEFL is only 61 in the IBT. IELTS is 6.0. Duolingo, you can take it online. We need a 95. We need your school transcript, your record, and we need the confidential financial statement provided by your bank. This is required by the United States government at all schools. They want to be assured that you can afford the cost of living in the United States for 1 year. So your family has to present proof by a certified statement from the bank that in your local currency, you have amount equal to $27,200. Now, you see on the slide bottom left, we have 26,750. Because of the tuition increase, this is now 27,200. And the tuition and fees, again, are 8,496. So you can see here everything that is required that is broken down for you. Here's the good news. While you have to have that in the bank in order for you to qualify for the visa, you don't come over with $27,000 in your pocket, and your parents don't have to put that in a bank account for you in the United States. What you need to do only is to pay on the quarterly basis, that is 3 times a year, for your tuition fees. So let's say you're spending, just to make it easy, $9,000 in total for the year for your courses. 3 times a year, you pay the school $3,000 before you can begin the studies, your quarter. And then the rest of it is also in installments, the health insurance, the books and supplies. So it's basically kind of a pay as you go. Again, we have no scholarships for the first year. I'm very sorry to say that, and I know that will disappoint some people. In the second year, we offer scholarships up to $5,000. We do have opportunity to work on campus. This is the only way you can legally work in the United States, but we do not recommend you begin that before your third quarter of your freshman year, because you need 1 or 2 quarters to become comfortable with life, with yourself. How am I doing? How's my English? How are my courses? How am I succeeding? Then you can apply for an on-campus job, and that may help you out also. So unfortunately, no scholarships for the first year. Now, this is the last slide, and if you would like to scan this barcode, you will come up with all of our important e-brochures and a lot of the lists and the facts and figures that we were talking about. You can see our web address, the email address. You can see my email address, Berrettini there, and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. It's all there. So I hope this has been useful for you, and we can answer any questions that you might have. Thank you. Stavroula?
Hi, thanks, Greg, for a brilliant presentation. I definitely found out a lot more about where the college is located. We have quite a few questions actually for you to answer. I hope you're ready. Let's kickstart this. Okay, so you spoke a little bit earlier about the school transfers. What would you say are the top 3 things that a student would need to be able to transfer?
Okay, this is an excellent question. If you're looking to get into an elite school and you want to get into one of the top or one of the elite schools, this is what they're looking for. I already mentioned that grade point average is nice to have and it's important, but it's not the only thing they look at. Having, let's say, even a 4.0, and you want to knock on the door of Stanford or Berkeley or Brown or any of these schools, that will get you to the door and it will allow you to knock on the door and the door will open, but you will not walk through that door until you are looking at providing them with other information about who you are. This gets back to an important first point that we discussed at the beginning of this. You have your own unique personality and gifts and needs. So they are looking at other factors such as what interests do you have outside of the classroom? We have more than 70 clubs on the campus. I tell students, join the club that interests you the most. If you play soccer or football, go ahead and join that. If you're interested in student government, join student government. If you want to join any one of these more than 70 clubs or start one club of your own, entirely easy and possible, this will show them, this kid plays the cello. This one has published poetry. This one is the captain of the water polo team. In other words, they want to know, what do you bring to enrich their campus besides smarts? Because everybody there is going to be smart. Now, having this and the other 2 things I'm now going to talk about will add up for points for you in terms of getting admission to one of the top schools. The other thing that they look at is service. Have you volunteered anywhere? Have you helped young children? Have you gone to an old person's home? What kind of service ethic have you showed? This is very foreign to people outside the United States, but we have all kinds of service opportunities on campus to help here and to help there. We give you that opportunity to develop that so you can include that on your resume that you're going to submit in your application to these schools. So this is very important, service. The third area they're going to look at is leadership. Have you shown any leadership qualities? Now, we have courses in leadership and students take that, but they were also going to look at, were you vice president of the international club? A lot of times the president of the entire student body is an international student because they're very motivated. Were you involved in some way or another in leadership roles? So they will, and even that can be even back in your own home country. So leadership, service, activities and interests outside of school. Now, grade point average. The last thing they're going to look at is your essay. Now, at the private universities, such as Stanford and some of the Ivies, the essay is very important. You have to be able to write a good essay. I like to say you have to show how bright you are without by pretending to know not how bright you are, and you have to, it's a balance between humility and wonderfulness that you are able to talk intelligently about something and write a great essay. We have a workshop at our transfer centers, how to write a good college essay. Now, the good news is when the University of California system, and for the transfer admission guarantee, you don't have to submit recommendations. You may be able to get away with not doing an essay. We don't have an essay required to come into Foothill or De Anza. So in general, you will have to do an essay, but there are some cases where you wouldn't have to do that. It's a little more challenging for an international student. So those are the 5 areas that I would say we give you 2 years to build your confidence and your skills in meeting the requirements for getting into top schools.
Awesome. Thank you for that answer. Next question. Is there an alternative to the TOEFL and IELTS accepted for English proficiency? What happens now that most test centers are closed? I know that you mentioned Duolingo earlier.
So Duolingo is probably your easiest if the testing centers near you are closed. We deal with the Cambridge IGCSE curriculum more than most schools. A lot of American schools are not so familiar with those, but we know that those are closed. We will, in fact, take the exams in those from the school itself, and because we know that the exam centers are all closed. So we can accept those that are administered by the school itself. But for the Duolingo and the score of 95. Now, from what I understand, the Duolingo, you can do it online. It's fairly simple, quick, and easy. And that's probably the one I would look into if you haven't taken it. The other option is, as I mentioned, is we do have kids who have been in international schools or sometimes binational schools where the language of instruction is English, and they've been there for 3 years or longer. Sometimes they've gone to a high school program in the United States. On a case-by-case basis, you may be able to get in without doing an English language exam.
Perfect, thanks. Now, I think we are moving on to a little bit of the talk of the year, which is COVID-19. So I have a question here from a student asking, how safe is California now in terms of COVID-19? Would I be able to get a vaccination there if I move to study? And what is the visa advice at the moment?
Okay, so all very good questions. I would say, already in the United States, on a state-by-state basis, New York, California, we have requirements that students have to have a vaccination for measles, mumps, and rubella called MMR. So this is nothing that is actually new. New York State, you have to get it before you come. In California, you can get the MMR vaccine on campus when you come to us. So that's something that we can do. Nothing has been established with regard to COVID, and it's too early to talk about that. Right now, there are plans to reopen both campuses for the fall. And I would say that the difficulty, the challenge that you guys have is that you're young. And in most countries, the young are of the lowest priority, especially if you've not been terribly successful in large vaccination campaigns and you've not vaccinated all of the elderly and the other people that you can. So I think that the challenge for you guys is when will your turn come? Right now, there are no plans to vaccinate incoming students. We would be the first to let you know, and we would be the first to get you over there to our center and say, okay, kid, go get vaccinated. So but right now, the simple answer is no plans to do so, no plans to require a vaccination certificate coming in, but everything is on a day-by-day basis. California has been hit relatively hard. The California public school system, as I said, we're part of the whole UC, Cal State, and community college. There are how many of us, 160, 170 schools. They did a very clever thing. Before the schools in the other states, they said, well, maybe we'll start, maybe we'll go. Many of them last fall started, and they had to close. And in Alabama, they had 600 kids sick of this. We never did. We have stayed closed since I think last spring. So we have been now 3 quarters where we have been closed, and only a very cautious opening for the fall. So that's actually helped us a lot. Our numbers of the sick have been practically nil because the campus has been closed. We've been online for at least 3 quarters now. So anyway, um, stay tuned, and it's on a day by day basis.
Understandable. I completely understand. Trust me. And now another question, also linked to mental health. Would you mind talking a little bit about what was the school role during the pandemic to help students with their mental health, and how did you help students who were struggling? Was this online?
I would say, just to be very honest with you, nobody knew what they were doing. Every American school has offered online courses for decades. I mean, it's not a new phenomenon. What's new is that everybody had to do it. And I will say this is we may have been a bit cavalier, and I don't know if you know how that word is used, but anyway, we may have been a bit cavalier in our attitude saying, okay, you can't come on campus, but if you want to start, you can start online. Here are the drawbacks of online education for international students. Number one, it's easier in terms of understanding English, not only interacting and asking questions, all that, but the comprehension of English if you're in person. So it's challenging depending on how good your English language skills are. Number two, physically, I'm coming to you from Indonesia, and I can tell you that the quality of internet here is very challenging. I am at a special place now with a cable Ethernet, because if we were depending on just the Wi-Fi, God knows how many times I would have come and gone. So that's very challenging, is the quality of the internet connection that you have. Number three, are the courses synchronous or asynchronous? In other words, most of these classes, because most of the students are American, and we are 92% US and 8% international. So most of the kids taking online courses are American. So the courses are scheduled for them. They're not scheduled for you. And sometimes it works out well in terms of like what country you're in and what the hours are in California. And sometimes it's not so bad, but this is another challenge, is that the courses are, they're not synchronous between where you are, and so you may have to be up in the middle of the night. Another challenge, and people speak very blithely about these things. Another challenge is materials. How do you get the materials? Are they available? Is there a censor block in your country? That's kind of a strange thing to say, but there may be, I don't know, some materials that some governments might not want you to see or think. That's a very strange kind of example. But if you're looking at things, is this what is available to you online? Can you download this? So getting the materials that you need for the class, all of these things are challenging. How we could help you handle those frustrations, I'm not sure. Let me say this. We had all of the facilities available online for psychological counseling, for academic counseling, for academic and other orientation. So there was everything that was offered normally was also offered online. How effective that can be would probably vary from person to person. And I am not an adequate judge of how we did for students' mental health during this period of time, given the number of students we have, given the fact that a lot of our students were US students, and given all of the challenges. So I wish I could sing our praises to the sky and say, fantastic. All I can tell you is we had these things available. A lot of students don't avail themselves of it. I mean, this is what I'm talking about earlier, be proactive. If you're feeling sick, go to the health center. We have health center right on campus, doctors, nurses right on campus. If you're challenged by by taking a math course or an English composition course. We have free tutoring. But unless you are proactive, if you're feeling homesick, if you're feeling lonely, if you don't go in, you're not going to get the help that you need. So my answer may not be satisfactory or 100%, but I think that's the best I can do.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you for answering all the questions. I obviously am a little bit conscious of time, so I think that will be the last one for now. But honestly, if anyone has any more questions, Greg, can you put on the contact us page
Yeah,
if you can?
yeah.
But yes, if you have any questions, please do go to the contact us page, which is just coming up now. And you can ask us a question at any point in your searches. Any last words from you, Greg?
No, I mean, if you want to scan that barcode there, that will bring up a lot of important information for you. And we're happy to be in touch and to talk with you. And we do have educational agents all across all of the countries that we might be appearing in now. And we can happy to put you in touch with these people who work for free and who would be happy to assist you if you think you'd like to make an application. Thank you very much.
Amazing. Thank you for your time. And thank you guys for your questions. They were very informative. Do visit viva-mundo.com just in the little corner here, and we will be able to help you with any of your international studies searches. All right, have a great day, whatever time you guys are at, and have a really good weekend. All right, bye everyone.
Thank